Hello class, I'm Myrna Roberts and I'll be your instructor for this introductory series concerning intercultural communications. The objective of this short video is to set the stage for an insightful, inspiring, and challenging class in intercultural communications. There are 4 other films in this series that will elaborate further on the points briefly discussed here. In order to begin any real discussion on the subject of intercultural communications, I think it's important to make the point here that societies, communities, or cultures are man-made constructs. And when it gets right down to it, these constructs are built on conversation as their building blocks. Communication is what societies are constructed on. Just think about interpersonal communication, interpersonal conversations at the dinner table between family and friends, business meetings on the golf course, or disputes in courtrooms, or even governmental sessions. These are all functions of society that are based on conversation, verbal and nonverbal communication. We'll talk more about that as we progress into the class, but just for a moment, I really want to delve a little bit into what culture is. Scratching at the surface of intercultural communications, our discussion must critically analyze a few things so that we can properly discern, define, and elaborate about the hidden virtues of culture. When you stop to think about it, because culture is so hard to define, I have chosen as a text Michael Warren's Seeing Through the Media. Because in this text, Warren offers a very plausible, concise, and complete definition for culture. Warren states that when you think about culture, you should train your brain to question what human hands are at work here, why, and how. You should understand that culture is always developing and never stagnant, and therefore you can, by your actions, influence culture and change it. To define culture, Warren borrows from a Welsh scholar, novelist, and critic named Raymond Williams. Raymond Williams theorized that culture is only one of 3 complex words in the English language. Williams and Warren believe that culture can only truly be defined by also discussing culture's siblings, society and economy. Within the historical evolution of culture, economy, and society, the construct of culture can be properly nuanced to make it a subject you can grab hold of, to handle it so you can discuss it. Part of this theory dictates that foundationally, culture is a human-made endeavor that historically comes from the term agriculture, which alludes to the cultivation of food and livestock. Culture is closely related to economy, which historically was concerned with the management of households rather than the management of nations. While society was historically concerned with active fellowship in schools of thought or working guilds. So these 3 constructs, culture, economy, and society, have homogenized together to become the hidden construct that we allude to as culture. So in short and simplifying a very complex construct, it's important that to understand culture or to understand a particular culture, you would do well to look at ways that humans cultivate food and livestock in that culture. You would do well to look at the management of households in that culture. And then you would do well to look at the schools of thought, the guilds in that particular culture. What's being taught? Now remember, we are discussing culture because it's a big part of the subject of intercultural communications. The key to understanding intercultural communications is, I think, twofold. The first part of the key is knowledge. The more you know about the culture you're attempting to communicate with, the better odds you'll have of a good quality experience. The second part of the key is motivation. What's driving you to communicate to the different culture? Are your motivations honorable? Is it a business deal? Is it military service? Are you engaged in mission work? You can see that your motivation goes a long way in deciding how well or what kind of relationship you'll develop. Since culture is man-made and based on communication, you can use communication to decode certain elements of a given culture, depending of course on your motivation and the amount and quality of information you know about the culture you're trying to communicate with. As a parting word on this video, I want to give you an example about the key of knowledge in intercultural communications and how we can influence culture. In 2006, while visiting Kenya, my friend Jane and I were walking along the road in her hometown, a village on top of Mount Kenya, and that was near a national reserve park. Jane and I were talking as we walked toward the city to see her father, who was a local politician. As we walked along the road, Jane enthusiastically pointed out various features of her town. She showed me the tree that she and her sister Catherine were stuck in during an elephant alert. The elephant was much bigger than the tree that she and her sister clung to for dear life. It was a fond memory for Jane. Jane smiled when she spoke of her time growing up there when the elephants got loose from the National Reserve, and we both laughed when Jane told me about and imitated the inebriated elephants who ate fermented mangoes. As we walked closer to the reserve, Jane told me a story about the elephants, and her face grew dark. She said men came and took all the female elephants along with their calves and even the adolescent cows and bulls. Jane said that some months later the men came back and took most of the adult bulls. I could tell by Jane's conversation about the missing elephants that she didn't like it. It troubled her greatly. That the elephants were very important to the local ideology. Jane's story sounded familiar to me. And I said, Jane, I know this story. I relate a similar story to Jane that I'd seen on the Discovery Channel here in the United States. There was a story about the Kenyan elephants that kept getting out of the reserve. So men removed the female elephants and all of their offspring, both male and female, and took them to a different reserve. Well, I gotta say right here that I'm from the United States and we don't have elephants as part of our natural habitat. And part of my childhood arguments were centered around who would win a battle between the elephants and the rhinos. Well, this documentary emphatically answered that question, because the adolescent bull elephants without supervision from adult bulls were going around killing rhinos just because they could. For no other reason, the adolescent male elephants hunted down the rhinos of that district, killing them just for fun. Well, on the documentary, expert veterinary advice dictated that the adolescent male elephants secrete a musk and excessive testosterone that would not be secreted if adult male elephants were in the vicinity. This made the adolescent bulls act out in ways that adult female elephants could not control. As the story goes, the men went back to the original forest and took several of the bull elephants to the second location. The video actually showed the adult bulls disciplining and grooming the adolescent bulls, taming them so that they could be fit for elephant herd. When I saw the demonstration of adult authority over adolescent, I reflected on my own troubled neighborhood. We were having trouble with adolescent males. They were breaking into cars and writing on walls. Pretty expensive mischief. So because of what I saw on the Discovery Channel about the elephants, I began to knock on doors in my neighborhood and ask the men to come outside to corral the children. I knocked on every door in that neighborhood. And surprisingly, the men listened to me while I told them the story about elephants in Kenya. The change in my neighborhood was astounding that summer. The men changed the behavior of the boys and the streets became safer. As I finished the story and we approached our destination, Jane was visibly in tears. The story of the elephants, her elephants, touched Jane's heart. As soon as she introduced me to her father, the municipal politician, she told him the story of his elephants and the impact that the elephants had had in a faraway land, in a faraway village. In this way, because I had high quality information about Jane's culture, I became a real ambassador to a village on Mount Kenya. This story illustrates a developing culture, two developing cultures, one in Africa and one in the United States, and how developing cultures can be influenced. You can also see how knowledge about the intended culture can breed success. Well, this is a good end for today, as it will be a good place to pick up next time in our class on Intercultural Communications. Bye-bye.